This is Coda Radio, episode 54 for June 17th, 2013. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. We stream this episode live Monday morning over jblive.tv. This episode's brought to you by our fantastic sponsor, GoDaddy.com. I'll tell you more about GoDaddy as the show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is the always fantastic Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Oh boy, that was Mickey. I was going for Mario.
No. I don't know what it is. It's something about just the wires get crossed. Almost more often than not.
Yeah, I had a very long discussion about Disney World on Father's Day, so I think I'm just a little...
Did you know there's a Disney World's podcast? And
all
the guys do
please don't tell my fiance, because it'll be playing 24/7 in my house, and I'll lose my mind.
Well, how are you doing this week, Mr. Dominic?
I can't talk about that, Chris. I am under NDA for everything. I've never eaten any fruit, any red fruit, green fruit, no Granny Smith, no Macintosh, nothing.
The Great Iron Dome has been lowered, and you are now in the cone of silence. It's shaped kind of like an apple from an apple tree.
Oh, no, more like a pear.
Okay, more like a pear. Okay.
An iron curtain has fallen on Eatontown, New Jersey.
Well, that's all right, because we have got a bunch of great emails that we're going to get through this week. And then I'm going to mourn the loss of hitching myself to a wagon that's gone off in a direction that I just simply can't go.
Chris, if I knew how to use a soundboard, I'd be playing taps for you during it.
Oh, taps, huh? Well, the only thing I've got on the soundboard that is probably going to be applicable today is you're going to be telling me, well, Chris, you know what? It's just a matter of
business.
Oh, I know, Michael, but no, Chris, it's
business.
That's, I'm sure, how this will go today. But, I think this also applies to application development. I think a lot of people out there, say maybe you have yourself a VB6 program, you love it, getting real far, and then all of a sudden Microsoft comes along and says, you know what, all these tools around VB6, we're not supporting these anymore. But what do you do when you have an active customer base, you're seeing growth in your application, and all of a sudden you've hit yourself to some sort of wagon that's gone off in a different direction? I think there's a lot of different angles.
You pop open a six-pack and cry.
Well, maybe. I'll get yourself a Foster's, I say. Or, in my case, a Red Hook ESP.
By the way, I think Foster should sponsor the show.
That would be a life achievement.
Australian for coding. Think about it.
Dude, if we had a beer sponsor on this show, I think there would be absolutely everything okay with that. I wonder how that would work, though, with world laws and, like shipping between overline. Even what can they do? Like, you can't, go to Fosters.com and order a beer. So it'd be a difficult pitch for them.
Oh, yeah, that's illegal, isn't that?
Yeah.
Those pesky law things. Listen, the government doesn't follow the laws, so hey. Yes, so we should probably address that. We got 20 emails on Prism.
Yeah, well, it's a big topic.
Not super relevant to a show called Coda Radio.
Not that we can think of, at least.
So, not that we're ignoring it, but we're not going to really cover it.
I mean, I'm sure there's been some very interesting stories that we maybe one day will hear about the database systems that had to be created and the applications that had to be written to parse all of this.
Like, if you work for the NSA and would like to come on and tell us all about your coding techniques,
we'd love to chat.
Continuous integration, love to hear about it. Beyond that, I don't see a lot of relevance. Now, Jupiter Broadcasting does have a show that those emails would probably be more relevant for, called Unfilter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can send it there. We've been getting some good
I
stuff.
would send them there.
And we've also just, been covering in the last 2 weeks on the Linux Action Show privacy stuff. We did encryption tools 2 weeks ago, and then this week took a Raspberry Pi, and in a few minutes you can turn it into a Tor proxy for your whole network. And what's really cool is if you just want to be anonymous for a few minutes, you just...
So I went the other way.
Oh, yeah? You just everything...
I turned my Raspberry Pi into a surveillance drone.
Where you're just sending them the logs directly?
You know what? But I'm not sending them taxes this year.
Well, they'll find out. They're going to find out. That's the thing.
Well, not to get off topic, but actually, did you hear about the IRS doing big data to see if you post on Facebook about a large purchase that seems out of your means, they're going to audit you?
Yeah, well, and in some of the cases, when during their audits, they've been asking people for their social profile pages, the social profile sites that they follow, things like that too. So yeah, it's pretty wild. And one way to think about it is everything you put on Facebook is absolutely public.
Absolutely. It's what was the not the, we'll jump off of this, but I remember an old school radio guy said, "Don't put anything in email unless you want it on the front page of the New York Times."
Well, that's one way to think about it, huh?
Yeah, really. Don't put it in writing unless you want to.
And that's why I honestly try to do a lot of my client correspondence via email.
Yes, exactly, because you always have a record.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where when you talk about things over the phone, it's very easy for one side to say they forgot or they didn't understand correctly.
And that's relevant for development consultants as well, because they could just say, "Oh, I never authorized the additional hours."
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have it in writing. You don't have it.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of an update. Speaking of clients, and then we'll get to the feedback.
Don't tell me.
Do you have a guess?
Did you do it?
I did it.
How was the divorce? Was it amicable?
Yeah, it was. It was pretty amicable. I'm a little nervous still, just because Ange is also now a stay-at-home mom because she's about to pop with kiddo number 3. But the work was just getting too crazy, too hectic, and I had to start canceling on them a few weeks in a row. And I just thought, I'm not going to just keep doing this to them. So I just had to come clean and tell them that, at least for the next, foreseeable future, I'm going to have to be out for a while, which is good because, man, they're still just having so many technical debt issues that it was starting to become a huge, drain. And they'd have me go in there and, spend hours doing things that weren't really solving any major problems. So I felt like, it was good for me because I wasn't enjoying the work anymore.
So that was your final client, yes?
Yeah, I still have a couple that call me up every now and then and say, hey, can you come in for an afternoon? And I think I might maybe keep those guys, just because It's like every now and then I hear from them out of the blue. But
well, especially with you buying all that expensive Apple hardware, you need an infusion of cash every few months.
My gosh.
But let's get to the email before I start making fun of you.
Yeah, we'll save that for the rest of the show.
It's gonna be a bad show.
So we got a feedback from episode 10 this week.
Yeah, back when the dinosaurs ruled the earth.
Right.
And I didn't know how to. I still don't know how to do this. Let's be honest. So Bill writes in. Bill was a young developer, a lad at episode 10, who I guess was wanting to learn C. Now he has a problem. He's been doing a lot of C. Apparently he's doing all right at it, but he's afraid of attaching himself too much to one language, and maybe isn't, he thinks that's maybe not the best thing for newbies. He goes on and basically he hates Java, shocking. And he wants to know if he'd be better off focusing in on C and becoming a domain expert or trying something else.
This is interesting. So, expert of one thing or mediocre on many things is his question. This is how it was explained to me once when I was a young lad coming up. I was sat down and I was told, you focus on one thing. You become very good at that one thing. And then you move on to the next thing.
And I was told the exact opposite.
Yeah, and I was never able to I was never able to take that advice ever. I always have to go where the itch needs to be scratched.
When I got my first paid programming job, the guy who I essentially worked for told me straight out, he said it was a Java thing, right? It was back in the bad old days of Java applets when they were the cutting edge, right? When they were like apps right now.
Mm-hmm.
He said, don't get too attached to this because you're not going to want to do this in 5 years. But really, I mean, I couldn't think, how could Java not be the answer to everything? And how could applets not be perfect? Yes, I was wrong. Please stop sending those emails, people.
That's very interesting. So that's a whole other way to look at it.
I was amazed by applets. I was blinded. I'm like, Java's the future. Right once I would have tattooed Duke on my forehead. Like, I was really into it. But history proved me wrong, right?
And then as time went on, you kind of burned out, or you kind of found something else that got your interest.
Well, no, what happened was, I mean, I followed this guy's advice, no matter what he said. So I did, play around with other things, and I eventually played around with Objective-C on a relative's advice after doing a lot of web stuff. But is that bad? I mean, I guess it's the... I don't think, especially if you're a consultant, you can afford to stick with one technology forever.
Yeah, unless it's such a big market. And this kind of went
Right.
into our Ruby conversation last week where we were saying that, Ruby's one of those things where there's a big enough community right now that you could almost hyper specialize and only, you could become a boutique developer in that
Right.
sense.
There are places for boutique developers, and again, if you're a one or two man company, okay, right, you can have a dozen clients and be booked out virtually indefinitely. I just don't know, beyond a business perspective, being able to market yourself as a C guy. Is there a good reason not to look into other stuff? So it's really interesting that you don't like Java, actually, because I often deal with students that I hire that love Java and hate everything else.
Right.
So I would be curious as to why you don't like Java. Um, Now, you said you're interested in Ruby or Python. Both of them allow you to write C modules, for lack of a better term. That might be a nice way to go in, right? I don't know. I mean, you also mentioned that you might be interested in learning Go. A lot of Another person wrote in about Go this week.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you would want to do that unless you're a serious back end performance guy. But ultimately, I'd say do everything, right? Learn as many languages as you can, or at least play with
Do
them.
you think I think it's personality based. I think some personalities are better suited at being the boutique hyper focused guy who is just the total rock star or whatever. And then I
Right.
think other people are better at shopping around. They're better at sort of keeping more things kind of in their view because they want to be able to move between them at any time. And I think this might come back to our conversation we're going to have later in the episode where if you go too far down the rabbit hole in one area, then when you hit bottom, you don't really have anywhere else to go.
But and to play the other side though, I got a call this week from an old client who said, because often is the case, you're a consultant, they hire someone on to replace you. They hired someone who had never done manual memory management
Mm-hmm.
and was just having a bad time. And for legacy reasons on this old Mac software, they couldn't really convert to Arc. And it wasn't garbage collected because the Mac garbage collector is not very good. So, he called me and says, "Can you do some, basically some just very small hero coding in the fall? Just come in and just clean up memory. No features, just clean up memory leaks." Now, manual memory management hasn't been a huge deal for new Apple software for, is it 2 years now? 3 years? It's a while. I mean, it's been some time, but there's still a place for it, right? I guess maybe that's an advantage of sticking with one technology for a long time. I don't know. It's up to you, Bill. I would probably learn other stuff too, though.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
now. Now seems like the time. So you kind of got to Go, but Kyle wrote in asking about Go language for desktop apps.
Yeah, I've never heard of it used for that. I'm pretty sure it's everything I've read about Go, and every time someone's tried to pitch me to look at Go, it's because of back-end server performance.
Right.
Never really a GUI desktop sort of thing. So you might be better served looking at like a whatever, a C# mono kind of deal or a Java deal or something like that. Something a little more. Yeah, because I don't even know of a Go framework for the desktop or the GUI. And it's really not the focus of the language currently, right? Now that could change. I mean, Google has the resources to build their own framework.
Yeah. That'd be kind of not well. I guess
But
it's surprising. It'd be surprising if they did that.
Right. It is built as a back-end server language for servers that need performance. Right. It's a C++ replacement for the back end.
Aye,
laddie.
All right. But if anybody has heard otherwise, let us know. Now, Daniel wrote in with a question that I've been wondering myself. Whatever happened with the Ouya? What's going on with you and the Ouya?
Yeah. There was a project that I was doing under a company that shall not be named because I own it, but I haven't released it yet publicly.
Apple Inc.
No, yeah. Yeah, oh, they'd love that. No, it's a small studio I have, but there was even a prototype, Chris. A playable prototype.
Ooh.
I hate the Ouya.
Whoa.
It's just a bad system. I didn't want to hit this hard, but
Wow. So you were less than happy, in other words.
the box, at least the one they gave me, runs really loud.
Oh, really? It's loud?
Yeah,
This little box is loud? I guess it
yeah,
probably
but
has a
it's
little
not. It's
fan.
not loud like the PS3 is loud. It's got a weird hissing.
Yeah, it's a
Which I
small
guess is
fan
the
thing,
fan.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel the controller's a little awkward. I mean, they keep touting the design of the controller. Is this another case of designers not being edited? Right.
No, that's iOS 7.
I can't say anything about that.
Okay.
Uh, okay, actually, I can. That I can. Yes, I agree. Why? You know the. No, it's just not very good. And I hate to say that because I was a big supporter.
Yeah, you were. And you were kind of
I mean, I must have spent 200 hours of dedicated coding to the Ouya.
you kind of convinced me to get one.
Yeah, I did until I got mine.
Yeah, well,
And what's weird is I put my software on it. There were, not to toot my own horn and my team's horn, but it performed well. There was no significant issues, right? But we all kind of looked at each other, and it was, I would not do this on the Ouya if I didn't have to.
right.
But the one kid that I brought on was straight out. I was like, if you didn't order me to test it on the Ouya, I probably wouldn't have.
Ouch.
And I was like, you know what? The reason I told you to do it is because I didn't want to.
You think I should
And it
cancel my
wasn't-
pre-order?
So I'm thinking of giving it to my brother. He's 6, and there's a lot of little little games he could play. Right.
Oh, good idea.
And I just, from a you can play your sound clip business perspective.
From I'm sorry.
Business.
There you
Thank
go.
you. I mean, I don't want to hit it hard, and I've hit it pretty hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a piece of junk.
Wow.
Especially when Sony's like the PS4 is going to support the same thing. And it's really bad when a sophomore in college is looking at me and saying, why don't you just do this on the PS4?
What if you could use the Xbox 3 Sizzles controller with the Ouya?
It's not just the controller. It's the menu interface. It's
No good.
slow. It doesn't respond the way I'd like.
See, this is the thing is, the Verge close-ups of the controller, the buttons didn't look great. The OS interface, that can be fixed, but the thing that can't be fixed is the thing is shipping with old hardware now. I mean, there's just no nice way to say it. It's old hardware now.
But that's the thing. In my software, there wasn't a performance issue, right? So there was
Okay.
beyond controller support. There was no work you had to do for the Ouya.
Okay.
I mean, there was a little bit, but nothing like, oh, the Ouya sucks, right?
So then the UI leg is what? Just bad.
It's in their menus.
Yeah.
It's navigating the menus on the store.
Maybe those are all CPU, like, maybe it's all like, I don't know. Maybe those are all CPU dependent or something on the rendering.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that.
Is that a bird?
Yeah, you can hear that?
Yeah.
My windows are closed, dude. I'm sweating like a pig in here.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty intense. That's nice, man. That's nature. Little Coda Radio nature. So I'm going to give this away is what you're telling me.
So I don't want to hit it. Yes, I guess you should.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's a fine gift for a young child to play some some nice little indie games. But from a business perspective, if you said PS4 or Ouya, it's really hard to say Ouya.
Man, I totally thought Apple was going to update the Apple TV at WWDC with apps and stuff. So still room for the Steam Box and the Ouya if they can get it together. Still room.
I don't think they can.
Wow. What about version 2? Could it be a version 2 thing?
I think it's going to be a version 2 thing. I think it's going to require a little bit of a shift.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I really think there is a market for this type of console.
Yeah. Well, it would seem. I mean, there's been a pretty big response. Not like, market-making response, but, early adopter response has been pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a box you could hack and put Xbox Media Server on too.
Right. Oh, I don't even know if you have to hack it anymore. I think I think somebody already has, or there's going to be a package for it.
Okay, so I mean
Is that a phone?
that's a bird.
Wow.
Yeah, the bird is a big Ouya fan that's out there trying to peck through the window.
Slips in the chat room says, in his opinion, the Ouya is more on the level of the Wii, but it's not even that. It's not even. It's not even
No, it's really not. I'm
because the Wii
sorry.
has some, unique standout titles that are, exclusive and people love them.
So for me, the big issue with the Ouya is that the Ouya opens up the living room for indie developers,
Right.
but now so does the PS4.
You think?
It does. They've said that.
How is that going to work though?
Supposedly, you can self-publish your game.
Quite well, as a matter of fact.
Yes, there are a number of, I guess the British would say, cheeky YouTube videos that Sony's put up about handing games to each other and other really, really clever ways to zing Microsoft.
Dude, they're totally sticking it to Microsoft.
Yeah. But
I mean, Sony just win for it. Sony's winning the internet right now.
they are.
Yeah.
And we can talk about this because a ton of people wrote in about this. So I did pre-order an Xbox One, but I'm also going to get a PS4.
All right, you're gonna get both, huh? I think I'm not. I don't sell mobile apps like you, so I don't make the big dollars. But I was thinking of one console for me, and I'm thinking it might be the PS4.
Well, I'm getting the one as the personal console for the house because, I hate to say it, but Laura's going to use it more, and she's going to do the movie TV
Xbone?
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about TV. I don't even know how to work our DVR. The PS4 just seems like a better business opportunity, though.
Yeah. Well, there's at least a path to get there.
Well, there is the path with the one, right? You just have to make a deal with them. That's what they've said. That's what Don Matrick has said at E3. It's kind of like a Hollywood thing, right? Don't call us, we'll call you.
I think I think Microsoft has blown it. I think they went up there. They didn't talk about games. They didn't talk about indie development. I think once again, Microsoft are showing they've completely lost their mojo. Sony came out. They wowed everybody. They got everybody talking. They came out and answered all of the points that Microsoft didn't address and didn't just answer them, but was like, here's the right answer. We know you want this answer, and we're playing to that. And I thought it was a brilliant move that showed their insights into the development community and into the gaming community way beyond what Microsoft does. And Microsoft had people up on stage that I can't connect with.
Wait.
They had their executives
let's
up there that are snoozers that don't seem like they get gaming at all.
So Don Matrick should never be put on stage ever.
Or that gal that came out there during the TV stuff that talked about TV a whole bunch, and she just I mean, I just look at this and I go, you people don't look like gamers to me.
All right. So first of all, I think when Don Matrick said, I think it was IGN or Kamasutra was interviewing him. Well, what about folks in the military who, for obvious reasons, don't have great internet connections? That's not just the American military, right? British, whatever. Oh, well, we have a console for you, the 360. That's a tone-deaf answer.
Yeah, I did not like that at
all. If I was the guy, I would have slapped him. He deserved. I mean, he should lose his job for that. Because military people love it when you cater to them. So if I was Steve Ballmer, I'd fire him tomorrow and say that's the reason publicly. And a lot of sales. B, it's a very disrespectful thing to say, and not just about the military. What about people living? I have FiOS and my internet goes out. Right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't. I get what they're saying. They're building for the future, but you can't dismiss legitimate concerns like that.
Right, and some of this can be adjusted. Like, I guess the thing has a 24-hour check-in period where you can operate offline, but
this is all policy. This is all software.
Right.
They could turn this off.
And I think it's the combination of presentation combined with policy, combined with the tone-deaf answers that shows really Microsoft is not the company to be in the lead position for the consoles. They're really not. It needs to be handled by somebody who's got their crap together a little better. And I'm not saying that's necessarily Sony, but apparently from what we've seen so far, it looks like Sony. And if I'm going to be, if I'm in your position and I have to make a choice between one of them for development, well, right now, Sony's pretty much my only choice. But even if it wasn't, I'm looking at these two. It seems to me Microsoft is more interested in getting a partnership with Comcast than they're interested in getting a partnership with Michael Dominick or other indie developers.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft is interested in the old business model of you have a publisher, right? And the publisher finances development and they get a larger royalty.
Or Microsoft just thinks there's more money to be made in content because then they can better target ads around that.
I don't really think it's about ads. I think Microsoft is reacting to a reality of the gamer market's pretty small.
Yeah.
Relative to
I think that no.
Yeah, I think
gaming industry is huge. Gaming industry is going to be bigger than the movie industry one day. Got to be.
I guess it depends on how you define gaming.
Right. Console gaming is a niche. Well, hello. Do you need to go get that?
Yeah, can you vamp for a minute?
Yeah, I'll vamp for a minute. I'll make my point while you hear. I'll even turn you down a little bit so that way your dogs can bark. I guess my point would just be that while console gaming is a niche, and Microsoft's hope with the Xbox or the Xbone, right? Is that what we're supposed to be calling it? Is the Xbone? My point would be that I think Microsoft sees more of a money opportunity in expanding out into content delivery, like selling videos or basing ads around the show you're watching. You're watching a Game of Thrones. Maybe they can market you something for Game of Thrones. And I think that they see there's more market expansion in that area than they do in game development. And I think the miscalculus there is Sony believes that if they can create a general gaming platform that's available to indie developers, it's available to the big exclusive developers that they've always had, and sort of get more of a range, then that gives them a lot more opportunity for revenue generation via games. Whereas Microsoft's intention is to increase the console's revenue generation via content selling and advertising. And that's why I think for developers, the Sony approach is a better long-term approach for people like Mr. Dominic.
So I think my neighbor should just win the console fight. She just invited me for coffee. She forgot I had a show today.
Wow, that's really neighborly.
Yeah, well, she's a nice older lady, and she's very nice.
Well, hello there, Mr. Dominic.
See that? I'm a man of the people.
Yeah, I bet. You walk over there as you say,
"Hello, everybody.
Let's get down to
this."
Oh,
that's right.
So my point while you were gone was that Microsoft wants to make money by selling ads and content. Sony wants to make money by opening up the console to even more game developers so they can sell more game titles. And I think that's a way better strategy.
Maybe. I mean, I would love to get rid of my cable box, but I mean, that's also not the point of this show, right? I mean, that's why I didn't really want to cover those emails, because there is a development story on Sony, but they haven't really told us what the dev kit is, what the tools are, what the procedure is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Other than you can self-publish, which is a nice promise to make, but so if I called them now, are they going to say, all right, we'll send you a dev kit? Or is there going to be some weird watered-down SDK?
Right.
They
could do it on a PC now, I suppose. Now that it's all x86 based, right? And it's got...
Well, if they were smart, they'd probably do it on Mono Game, right? Fork it, do their own thing.
Wow, look at you with the assumptions and the ideas. Maybe they should buy that from you. You should sell that. Sony, contact Coda Radio at JupiterBroadcasting.com if you want to buy that idea.
Yes, buy it.
Michael sell it to you for a good price.
But yeah, I mean, there is no Microsoft story, and I don't know if that in itself is a story.
It is. It's a damn shame. It's ridiculous. I tell you, Microsoft is, man, I'm so unimpressed.
Well, there's nothing to talk about. I mean, I believe me, I'm very disappointed too. But
yeah. Well,
there's not a real Nintendo story either. Yes, they have a program, you have to apply for it, and they may or may not get back to you, kind of thing.
By the way, I know you can't say much, but there was moments during the WWDC keynote where Apple was clearly going after Nintendo, and nobody was saying it directly in the room, but Apple is becoming the number one gaming portable when you combine the iPad, iPod, and the iPhone. They're selling a ton of games, and now they're introducing full on controller support where you can build controller accessories for the devices they have. They have drawings online right now that, basically the phone snaps in and it freaking looks like a Nintendo controller. They filed for a patent, and in the patent, they used Nintendo controllers as examples. So, I mean, Apple is going for them. Nintendo is screwed. And you know what? It's kind of good for guys like you because you can sell via the iOS store. Just saying. Just pointing that out.
What I would say to that is, for small games that are below, let's say, $100,000 in budget, the publisher model doesn't make sense. And any company who's not agreeing with that is living in the past, right? So
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. If Nintendo came out today and released their big titles on Android and iOS, they'd make a mint.
well, the Nintendo situation's weird because they use software to sell hardware, which is fine, I guess. I mean,
Sega
I
did
don't.
that too, though, right? And they pivoted to a software company.
They did.
And,
It-
and
it-
and let's be honest, Nintendo is not the most impressive hardware company. Well, the DS, right? The mobile stuff's kind of neat, but it seems like the console stuff, not so much.
no, but their margins are much more impressive than the margins the other
Yeah.
console companies
Yeah,
get.
well, Nintendo's always been good at that. Although
Yeah.
not
And,
so much on the U, right? Wii U's the first console they're selling where they're actually taking a loss in every
no,
sale.
I don't think they actually take a loss. I think they break even.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the first one they don't make a profit.
Okay.
But I mean, that's neither here nor there. The gaming stuff is weird right now. There may be a big story here from the Sony side of things for sure. But, the internet's very happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And even a friend of mine is very happy about it. They haven't really told you anything. If you look at it critically, all they've said is we're not Microsoft.
Right. Well, they've told you a little more than Microsoft has, but I think what has people happy and optimistic is the way they framed everything they've said, and the messaging behind it has been so like, okay, we're getting you guys. We're getting what you're asking.
So they're not, though, right? They're doing the same thing Microsoft's doing, except they also allow self-publishing. I mean, they're still giving preferential treatment to preferred developers.
Right. Well, no, I mean, you and also they're sort of forcing you to get the PlayStation subscription now if you wanted
Right.
multiplayer. I mean, there's things that they're doing that are not awesome.
They're not exactly. I feel like they've done a great job with PR.
Well, they came out and you know what they did? They talked about video games during a
Yeah.
console launch. That was a really good. That right there turns out to be a good move. Then they not only did they say you can sell used games, but then they kind of made fun of the other guy for not even letting you do it in the first place. So they didn't just come out and say you can do it. They made fun of their competitor because it's so ridiculous they're not letting you. And I think that
Oh
was
no,
what really.
I agree. I agree that Sony did a better job. I'm just from a developer perspective. Other than the fact that you can self-publish, they haven't told me anything
Right.
that's actionable, right?
Right.
They haven't given me anything where I can act on.
Right.
I don't know what the requirements are, what the policies are, what languages you can use,
Right,
what
right.
the toolkit is. I
Right.
mean, these are.
Yep.
Is it a Visual Studio add-on? Can I write it in C# or Mono Game? Is it a C++? Do I have to go DirectX? Is it OpenGL? I mean, all they've said is that we'll let you do it, not how. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be as little as an HTML5 JavaScript thing.
That would be pretty disappointing. Didn't they
Right.
demo? Didn't they do a demo? I can't remember.
But they did a demo with select developers, and
Yeah.
this is what
Yeah.
with all these stores, you can get in the trap of thinking, what's good for A is good for B. That's almost never the case.
What if they came out and they said Unity? All right, Unity games. We now have a build target for the PlayStation 4.
I would say that's a bad thing.
Because you get why? Because the game needs to be specifically built for the console.
No, because Unity is becoming the de facto indie engine.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is they're all going to start feeling too similar.
Well, I've played a lot of Unity games, and
I've played a lot of Unity platformers, and they all feel about the same.
yeah,
And they all have the same weird stuff.
yeah, they
It's-
play a little bit.
yeah,
Well,
certain genres are better than others in Unity, that's for sure.
yeah. All right. Well,
It's an interesting time, but we should move on
Yeah,
because
we
this
should
is
get to
all
our-
theory.
we should get to our main topic, and we'll just see what happens. And I guess my closing thought on the PlayStation 4 would be is if they do have a really good setup for indie developers, you combine that with the $399 price point, it's probably going to be the number one selling console. So if that is a good component to what could be a successful recipe for indie developers. So if they can if they're firing all cylinders and they make the two things work, I think they really got something. But that is it. That's all I had. That was my closing thoughts.
All right.
All right, so now, before we get into the main topic that's going to make me cry and maybe also lead to me having to get some counseling, I want to take a moment and thank this week's sponsor, GoDaddy.com. Now, guys, did you know GoDaddy is sponsoring the Coder Radio program? Why? because you are out there getting your applications in front of your clients, in front of your customers. You're out there creating projects. You're out there collaborating. You're sharing. And you guys need websites just like everybody else. So look, we've got a deal for you. Use the code CODER249 when you check out. CODER249 gets you .com for $2.49. Additional .com's $9. Still a great deal after that. But look, maybe you're doing something else. Maybe you want to throw up a site. Hey, here's the thing about my thing I'm doing. Everybody go check this out. Maybe you want to get some NSSL certification. I don't know what you're doing. You're crazy. Use the code 35OFF4. 35OFF4 gets you 35% off your entire order when you're over at GoDaddy.com. And just right there in the shopping cart, look down there towards a little bit of the bottom below the shopping cart. You see, look, click that link. You put in the code right there. Boom. Savings right there. 35OFF4 or CODER249 when you're over at GoDaddy.com. Look, .coms, telling you guys, they're going to be big. So go get one. Thanks to GoDaddy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Dun, 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 dun. All right. I feel like I need a cleanse. I feel like I gotta get something off my chest. Can I tell you my situation?
This is a safe space.
No. Okay. All right. Now, nobody judge. All right. Don't be judgy people out there. I bought a current model Mac Pro. The current cheese grater generation.
Meaning not a trash can model.
Well, you can't even buy them right now. But
True.
So last Monday after we got off the air, Apple announced the upcoming Mac Pro. And it's interesting. It's definitely a very different design than the current model. It's if you can picture a trash can, you literally can picture what the new Mac Pro looks like. Now, for me,
it's a very nice trash can.
Yeah, so a little background in my situation is the current hardware I used for streaming. All the software is macOS dependent, and you need quite a bit of processor horsepower, minimum about 16 gigs of RAM, and maybe about a terabyte of really fast RAID 0 array storage. And you need all of this to do what I do, to do these shows live with capturing and streaming and recording an HD version, all that stuff, right? And so that kind of means a Mac Pro. The problem for me is all of my hardware is based on PCI Express, so they're expansion cards. I have these fast 10,000 RPM hard drives that are very expensive, that are all internal SATA drives. And the type of software that I use usually sees about an upgrade once a year, and generally that upgrade often recommends a video card to go along with it to take advantage of new GPU features. So usually about once a year in my Hackintoshes right now, I replace the graphics card. So I'm in a spot where I've invested literally thousands of dollars in the hardware to make this possible. And this new machine totally invalidates all of that investment. And some of that stuff's, 6 months old. And replacing it so that I could be compatible with this would mean going all to Thunderbolt, which would not really net me any benefit because it would still be the same capacity and speeds. It would just be a different interface method. But now it'd be in external enclosures with power bricks and fans. And this doesn't address my need at all. So I'm stuck. So so right after the keynote, because I figured other people might be stuck, I immediately ordered the current generation Mac Pro to try to get by for another year or two. But then what am I going to do after that year or two? I don't know.
Right. So this is, and I think for the folks who don't know and don't follow the keynote, this machine it's certainly not for developers. Right off the bat, right? It's not the old Mac Pros where it would be the best dev machine you could ever have because it would be the best Windows machine or best Linux machine you could possibly get.
And run Mac OS.
And run Mac OS when you need to compile into Xcode and stuff like that. That's specific to Apple. Yeah, Chris, you're screwed.
I am. And so what they offer 6 Thunderbolt ports. And Thunderbolt is pretty good. It's 2 gigabits. Now, bear in mind, these are 6 Thunderbolt ports spread across 3 Thunderbolt controllers. Each Thunderbolt controller is on a PCI Express 2X backplane. Okay, so that's already slower than one of my capture cards because my capture cards are 16X cards. But okay, whatever. And then that means I could probably get a couple of cameras, maybe, on one controller. Then I could maybe do a drive array on another controller. Or I might have to split my cameras across multiple controllers and then the drive array on its own controller. Because we're talking, high bandwidth stuff here, even though these are 20 gigabits.
Right. And I think the bottom line is that they've changed the platform. It doesn't work for you anymore.
That is the bottom line. Is I've sort of invested in a platform that no longer is going to no longer exist. I've
And
just bought. I had to buy the old model.
and it happens with more than just hardware. Let's think a few years back to all the VB6 guys. Why do you laugh every time I say VB6?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
When C# came around, right? Yes, you could still write Visual Basic, but let's be honest, the preferred language is arguably C#. And what's even more interesting is that now some C# developers I know personally feel like now it's swinging to C++ from Microsoft. And that C# is starting to get left in the cold. We had, I think it was last week or the week before, where I mentioned there's a specific API that doesn't work in C# for WinRT, and it only works in C++. There's no reason for that. It's pulling out an image from a video. It's pulling out a frame from a video. These things happen, right? To give you an Apple example, remember when Apple was touting Java as an awesome platform?
Right.
Where did that go?
Yeah, they removed it from the operating system.
They got rid of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I follow what you're saying here, but see, my predicament is a little worse. So when Microsoft moved to C#, developers could move.
They gave you a path.
Well, yeah, right. And there's no path here for me. It means reinvesting in all of my hardware, which nets me zero performance gain. I'm not going to make my shows any faster or any better looking. And the other issue is if I don't do that, nobody else is actually building a solution from end to end that works for me. So I don't actually have, I couldn't go base this whole setup around Premiere and Windows or Linux and Lightworks. It's not possible. So I'm kind of in this position where in order to sort of move to the next thing, I'm going to try to hold tight on the old generation for another couple of years, which is honestly just not how I like to do my business. First of all. And second of all, it's not going to net me the performance gains I want. Or I pivot and I change what I do a little bit. And that would, that would actually mean, I mean, quite literally, it would mean format changes in the shows. It would mean all kinds of
there's
stuff.
Another side too. Your competitors are probably not going to sit around on the old generation.
Right.
So you this goes for developers too. You eventually have to keep up with the Joneses. What do you do? I mean, Chris has an added layer of he'd have to spend several $1,000s on new hardware.
Right. I can't just spend
Right.
time to learn something new. I gotta invest. And by the way, hardware that's not necessarily as battle tested as the PCI Express slots. The Thunderbolt stuffs are first generation. In some cases, they go offline improperly. It's like the old SCSI days where everything has to be turned on in a certain order before you power up the main machine. All this kind of old hokey stuff that you just don't want to have to deal with anymore. So it's not a good option. Meanwhile, these PCI Express expansion cards are battle tested for years. They're reliable.
Right.
They're high performance.
In a way, you and I are in the same position. We literally could not do a large portion of our jobs without Apple hardware.
Yeah, and I'm not happy about it because now I'm in a bad position. And in some cases, this new Mac Pro, it would actually, there's some workflows here at the Jupiter Broadcasting Studio, like just straight up editing. I think this is going to be the best computer for editing with that 800 megabit or 800 megabyte a second PCI Express storage they've got, and Thunderbolt in that scenario for scratch disks. I'm thinking that's going to work really, really well. But for live production capture, and let's keep in mind, going on location and doing live events and podcasting is no longer small. I mean, almost every major company has setups like these. I mean, this is a market now. I'm stuck.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction in your specific case is you're going to have to buy this at some point.
Yeah.
You might put it off for a year, maybe even 2. But unless, and what's weird is your issue isn't really that you need a Mac. Is that the software doesn't exist on another platform.
Right.
So any developers out there who know anything about video editing.
Well, see, this is why it's so hard, because it's such a complex, it's a pipeline of work that you need to have there's all these layers that all have to work together. And it's just there's this industry built around the Final Cut and ProRes and this whole pipeline that, it literally would take an industry to replace it.
Right, and all the the larger studios are all, of course, Apple shops. So there's not a whole lot of incentive for anyone to develop anything on another platform.
I feel like they built these things for the guys at Pixar.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely. I feel like they had their ideal customer in mind, and it is the dude who's rendering Toy Story.
You not being able to replace the GPU in a workstation like this, every year in my Hackintoshes, I've replaced the GPU because of software requirements. And I'm not going like cheapo crap GPUs. They were ATI 5700s and then they were ATI 6900s and now they're ATI, blah 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 blah,
Well,
right?
I
So
mean, if you look at the rest of their lineup, their machines are meant to be disposable,
all
which
of them now,
is
all of them
terrible.
are
Yeah,
now. Every machine Apple makes, and that's everything from the mobiles to the laptops to now the desktops.
like
Everything.
my Air, the RAM is glued into the motherboard.
The mini, even the mini, but it's the least disposable. But even well, no, I mean it's just disposable because the processors and GPU are fixed.
Well, the RAM you can switch on the Mini still.
Yeah, well, whoop-dee.
Yeah.
I mean, you get so much RAM now when you buy it that
Well, not really. I have right. I'm talking to you on an Air with 4 gigs of RAM.
well, the Air, yeah.
I already am wishing that I should have just gotten the higher gig model.
Like Shane Kufel in the chat room points out, some of that stuff does exist for Linux. It just has an 80 grand license, and that's exactly it. Is like,
Yeah.
if I was LucasArts, I would just do this on a Red Hat enterprise systems like they do, where they have, they've got big fat contracts for developers who just write that stuff for them. But I'm stuck in this where I have to use prosumer grade components, which are, able to do the job, but then I'm at the whims of a consumer company. Because a real responsible enterprise company doesn't do things like this.
No, you get the same thing for 10 years
Yeah.
with minor revisions. And I think there's a larger discussion to be had, even moving it a few levels of abstraction up away from video editing in particular, and even away from hardware changing, to what happens when you get so tied to a proprietary vendor's systems or libraries or whatever, and you find out that one day they're changing it.
Right.
And you're left with this option. You can adapt and hope that they're just successful with their next version, or you can move. And where would you move to? And I'm not sure. So I'm thinking if I had the drop doing all Apple work today, where would I go?
Android?
Yeah, I think it's easy to say I would just develop Android and not. But I'm thinking in terms of my workstations too. Let's say I magically
Yeah.
had to get new workstations.
Right.
Would I buy Macs again? Probably not. Um, I don't know that I would go I mean, I have a Windows box here. I don't know that I would be able to tolerate that full time, to be honest.
Yeah, every time I use Windows for an extended period of time, and I don't mean to offend Windows users out there, but
Right.
it drives me up the wall. It just certain things about the operating system drive me crazy, and then every now and then, like I have this Skype machine out in the garage. It just runs Windows 7, and all it does is I boot it up for TechSnap, and then I turn it off. And then if Matt has to Skype in for a laugh, only time I use it. And the other day I turn it on, and all of a sudden it has to go into startup recovery mode and repair the startup system for some reason. Even though I haven't done any updates, I haven't done anything. In my opinion, compared to other operating systems I use, it's just not as reliable. And in several ways, I'm not talking blue screens anymore. I'm just saying in
Right.
other ways.
Well, my tool chain also is so tied to the being able to have Unix commands, right?
Yes.
Being able to pipe two scripts together or
Very
three
true.
scripts together,
Right. I expect Bash. Bash is a dependency of my workflow.
Right, and I could even change to a different shell if I had to. I mean, I'm sure it would be very popular for me to just say I'd move over to like Arch or something, but I don't think that I would. I'd probably end up moving to Ubuntu.
Yeah, you could do a lot of development there.
It's just I'm now Ubuntu's having the same things that are turning me off on Mac, where there's definitely a focus on mobile and touch, and it's very difficult to accept on $2,000 desktop rig.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you go? Where do you hop? And then my question to you on the pre-show is do you ever get to a point where you're this stuck where you just say, well, I got to stop doing the thing I'm doing and do it differently? Like, do you ever get to a point where you just say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to maintain or make that application anymore?
Probably. So right now I'm in a weird spot where, I don't really have a choice, right? Because anything I buy outside of Macs is kind of an add-on. So that simplifies things. But I do wonder if for some reason, all the Mac and Apple work dried up. I don't know that I'd keep running Macs. I really don't.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they're going this direction. I think they're kind of indicating that they're done with a certain type of user, probably the type of user that has been with them the longest and the most sustained. That the history of the Mac Pro ends with this machine. This isn't a Mac Pro anymore. This is a Mac Mini Ultimate, is what this is. And
Well,
it's
what
a
it
very
is,
very good Mac Mini Ultimate.
what attracted me to, and we talked about this a few times, to Apple was that it was Unix that worked in a very general way, right? Because I had run Linux for a while, but it was back in right when it became somewhat viable, but it still had tremendous video issues.
Oh, especially back then.
Audio was a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Right.
I mean,
HTML5 was not a thing.
right. So it was a Unix system that actually worked. I wonder if Ubuntu had cleaned up their act faster, I may not even run Macs now, which is an interesting thing.
I would be in the same exact position if it was production software wise. Absolutely, because my preference was to do that, and it was after much consternation and dragging my feet that I ended up where I was at.
Right, because my real preference is I think you're right. Bash is mandatory.
So So here's my solution. My solution is to wait and see. Wait another year or two. See if maybe they come out with a version of this thing that takes GPU upgrades, or maybe Thunderbolt accessories turn out to be so super impressive. Maybe we have these Thunderbolt chassis that allow you to put these GPUs in there that are absolutely at the same level of performance that you would have if you had them inside the case. Whoa, what was that?
Hello, hello.
Hi, sorry about that. What was that noise? Was that you moaning in the background?
Hello.
Hi.
I think my HTC One went off.
Nice.
I don't know how we disconnected.
I was just saying that maybe I can hold out, let the generation of devices and accessories improve, and then we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Chris, say something. You sound robotic.
Yeah, it's a little spotty. I think Skype knows that our show's wrapping up.
I think it is wrapping up, and I think Skype is. They're a Microsoft company now, and I think they've just had enough.
Sometimes, if the Prism device takes too much of the light spectrum from the fiber cable, the Skype connection starts to lose packets.
Right. It looks like the live stream just crashed.
Your face just crashed, Mr. Dominic. Jeez.
Everything just crashed.
All right. Well, I think we're going to leave this one in progress since Skype has fallen out from underneath us. But, let us know what you guys think. CoderRadio@JupiterBroadcasting.com or hit the contact link at the top of our website. Mr. Dominic, where should people find you throughout the week?
They can find me at DominicM.com and at Dumanuko on Twitter.
Woo! Woo! You can find links to those in the show notes as well as my social profiles. And don't forget, Coder Radio is live on Mondays, 9 a.m., noon Eastern over at jblive.tv. All right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.